And we're live. Jimmie Rivera, sir, thank you so much for coming on today.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, as I told you just a second ago, is there a little something, little tidbit that the world doesn't already know about you?
I think if you look into like interviews I've done in the past or just some stuff in general, like I was like a little, I was a little chubby kid growing up, first 4 or 5 years of my life, and I had an asthma attack. I had asthma and I outgrew it, but I had asthma and I couldn't eat anything. Like it was barely. I was just drinking water. Couldn't like get anything down my throat because my lungs were, closed. And I ended up losing a lot of weight and not being such a chubby kid. And from there, having asthma attacks and not really being able to eat sometimes were kind of kept my weight down, kept me really skinny. But I was also like I was an active kid. I liked to be outside and play around a lot.
So then at what age did you like outgrow the asthma?
Like 13, 14 years old. It was more like when the seasons changed, dust, and then like any physical activity, like exercise asthma I had. So I would like be on a nebulizer if needed, especially when the seasons change. I mean, after the on fight, I got my nose fixed finally, and I think it's called polyps, and they grinded out my nose. It was crazy how much they took out of my nose. I stopped snoring, been sleeping better. The seasons change. I don't get sinus infections anymore. I used to get sinus infections like that. It's unbelievable the whole change of when you just, getting my nose fixed, and them just coming in there and cleaning it out. And they had to readjust right the top part because my nose was it's deviated already, but the top part got more deviated in the fight. So it was nice to be able to finally breathe because I was like 90% block and I was still training for fights. So I was like a mouth breather. Like that one fight I had was it Sterling that my mouthpiece kept coming out because I was just breathing out through my mouth and I couldn't breathe through my nose. So that's why when you breathe hard out of your mouth, like it just mouthpiece doesn't stay in.
Well, that's also crazy because you're known as like a guy with great conditioning, good cardio, and everything, and here you are like with like not able to breathe properly. Do you feel like since you've gotten it fixed now for this training camp, it's been night and day? Do you feel it?
Yeah, where I started this training camp, cardio-wise, like sprints, for instance, is where I was closely ended my last camp. So it was a tremendous difference from being able to breathe to not being like a mouth breather to now being able to breathe out my nose.
Wow. So we'll get into maybe your life a little bit after, but I'm more curious since we're on the topic of camp and everything. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time 3-4 weeks out of a fight. I know that you're busy these days.
I'm busy with everything. I was just talking to my manager yesterday. I was just like, yesterday was a crazy day of just being busy. Even my wife, telling my wife just one thing after another. Monday's like the start of the week, and it was the hustle. It was like the grind right away.
So do you? I mean, you have your gym in the city.
Yeah.
Do you during fight camp maybe take a little bit less time working there, or do you still do as much? How do you manage both of those?
It's hard. I usually, my PT who works with me and does my nutrition and a lot of my cardio stuff, we usually, even now, like any off camp, we try to still get like a second workout in. It all depends on what it is. But like yesterday, like most times I won't be able to hit a run right after training, so I'll hit my run at night. So like during one of my classes, I'll have someone teach and I'll, hit on the treadmill, hit my sprints or hit the bag, whatever I didn't get to do earlier that day.
So compare this fight camp to most. Do you still? I mean, do you tweak things as you go, or what's a Jimmie Rivera fight camp look like?
Always, there's always battle and injuries. There's always ups and downs, good training days, bad training days, and it's just blood, sweat, and tears in a way kind of thing. There's always good days and bad days. There's always, you have really great days of sparring or just rolling, whatever it is, and you have some bad days where you wish you did this or that. And then you always battle, I think every fighter does, battle injuries and, have to deal with certain things going on with their body. And, I think that's the toughest thing. Some people, it's funny, I've talked about it, my wife's been training since she was 3. Her dad actually cornered me in my first amateur fight because Tiger wasn't around. He wasn't available. And we always talk about like some guys only have this and this is what they do for fighting. This is how they make a living. So like they might go to the fight and they're not 100% and still go into the fight and maybe win or maybe lose, but they'll still have an injury and they'll get that injury like fixed afterwards through the UFC's income. But yeah, I hurt this, but they really hurt a long time ago. So a lot of these people like rely on fighting. It's like if I'm not 100% or if I'm really hurt, I'll step out. I'm like I'll wait till I'm, there's always gonna be bumps and bruises. That's one thing, but if something's really bothering me, I'm really hurt. I will not continue. Like, I'm not gonna name who it is, but someone I know, their knee was messed up and they were going against a wrestler and they couldn't, wrestle that much. Their knee was torn. So right after the fight, they lost. They didn't do well. They lost the fight, but right after the fight, they ended up getting surgery because their knee was that jacked up.
Right. And so for you right now, I think we're about 3.5 weeks out in terms of weight. When do you start doing all your weight cutting and managing?
I do it already. Yeah. Once I get into camp, I eat healthy as it is because I preach it to my students, my adults, and got to be in shape. And I can't be fat and out of shape and tell them, I'm going to get you in shape. So I'm always eating right. I cheat a little bit on the weekends, but then when it comes to the fight camp, there's just a cheat on the weekends goes away.
What do you walk around at generally?
Like between 150 and 155.
Okay, and what do you mind saying what you're at right now?
I don't know. I gotta check.
Do you have any bad weight cutting stories?
I think I've had a couple bad ones. I think my last bad weight cut was like when I fought Sterling. I literally we started the weight cut too late. I slept like 2 hours. I woke up, I finished the weight cut, and then I never recovered from the weight cut. So it's like, and fighters can relate, or people that train can relate. It's like not getting a good night's sleep and going to train next day and just doing horrible. And that's how I felt when I went fought Sterling. It was like, my coach was telling me things, this and that. I just couldn't put stuff together. I was dead. I was like, I just wasn't recovered from the weight cut. I didn't sleep enough. I didn't get a good night's sleep. And that was one of the things we fixed going into the Jan fight was like, started way earlier, got a whole night of sleep, figure out little things here and there for the weight cut, change how we did the weight cut too to 10 times better. So like my easiest weight cut, I got to say, was the Jan fight. It was the easiest I ever had.
And so, okay, I want to take you back a little bit, back in time to when you first started getting into fighting. You mentioned you were earlier on a little bit of a chubbier kid, the asthma and everything. When did you first get into mixed martial arts, and will you kind of give the background of, if you knew at a young age you wanted to be a professional fighter, how that came about?
No, not at all at a young age. But so I started training when I was 8-9 years old. I moved from Lodi, New Jersey to Ramsey, New Jersey, where I finished and graduated from Ramsey. And when I moved there in like 3rd grade, 4th grade, I was like the new kid, so I got picked on a lot. And then afterwards, it kind of like settled away, but I still got picked on from this one kid. So I was acting out at home, and my mom brought me into Tiger Showrooms for discipline. It was like the closest school. And I literally walked in there. I was always a fan of like Karate Kid, Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, and I literally walked in there, and this guy's walking to come teach me my class, and his name is Sensei Vincent Domingo. He owns a school in Garden City, and he was Filipino, so I was like, wow, this is gonna be just like Karate Kid. I'm like, this is my Mr. Miyagi. And then from there, I just taught it. He taught me. I fell in love with it. I literally would come like, we had beginner intermediate classes for the kids. I usually would come like an hour early or a half hour early just to watch the intermediate class and then do my class. And then, 2 or 3 days turned into like going every day and training. And then I saw people compete in a fight. I'm like, I want to do that. And I got into some kickboxing matches as a young age, like 13, 14. I think I had my first kickboxing match. And then after that, it was just like, I want to keep competing. And that's one of the things we teach our kids is competing, where it's not about the winning. It's about just getting in there. And if you don't win, just getting back up again and trying again. So that's one of the biggest things we teach and we preach in the schools, my school and all the other schools. And we do a tournament every 6 months. But besides that, get into the training. I got into it, loved it. And then I also, was able to defend myself against the bully and never had to deal with being bullied again in school, which was, a lot of kids deal with. And I have kids that come in because they're teenagers as well. And I just help them, and it gives them a whole new outlook, because if they do have to defend themselves, they know what to do.
What do you think it is for those kids who get bullied, who then learn martial arts or some form of fighting? What do you think it does mentally for them? Is it more just like they feel like they can defend themselves? Is it more, do you see them as being more confident after? Like, where do you see that? Like, I'm sure you've had kids walk in, you see what they're like in the beginning, and now you see their transition. What's that been like for you?
It's simple. It's the transition. It's like I tell parents, the best self-defense is self-defense you don't need to use. If you tell your kid to go defend himself, that's one thing, but you got to show them what to do. And that's where I come in. I show them what to do. And when a kid knows how to defend himself, they're a lot more confident. So, we're all animals at the end of the day. And, when your friend or someone, close to you is sad, happy, mad, it's the same thing if you know someone's confident that they can defend himself. So, and that's why we always say the best self-defense you don't need to use, because you're just going to be a lot more confident. You're not going to have to deal with it. And if someone says something to you, you'll stand up for yourself, whether it's mentally or physically.
So then at what age did you know, you had your first pro bout was at 18?
19.
19. At what age did you know, it was probably a few years before, I'd imagine that you wanted to be maybe a professional fighter. This is what you wanted to do full time.
Like, I think I want to say when I wanted to, like, really go into fighting and take it further was, like, about 16, 17.
And what did your parents,
Oh, so I just grew up with my mom. My mom was like, you're not doing it. I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And that's what I did. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in there, and that's it. That was the end of the story.
Does she come to all your fights?
She does. She gets way more into it than she is. She's a very overprotective mom. But it is what it is. I just, I make sure my mom is with my family, not with my wife, and separated, because, they get really into it. I can understand someone you care about and is really close to you. I'm the same way. Like, at MSG, I'm like, all right, when Shade and Julio and Lyman fought, I'm just like, all right, let me have a couple drinks real quick. I'm like, let me get my nerves down. Like, 'cause it's horrible watching someone you care about fight and you can't get in there and do anything about it.
Do you get more stressed out watching your friends fight rather than you fight?
Yeah. There's some stress on your shoulders when you have to fight, but it's more stress when you're watching your friend fight. Like, not the stress for you is like the whole fight camp. You got to make sure you're doing everything to prepare for it. But when your friends fight, it's a stress that night. It's a stressor.
And what's it like to have that? All the Team Tiger Schulman's guys you've got, I think, how many UFC guys? 4 or 5?
5.
5. What's it like training all together? And I know you guys a lot of times have tried to line it up so you guys are all on the same card. This past MSG card, you were not on that card. But what's it like if you are going through camp together, doing it together, and if not, just having that support?
It's good. It's just more back support. More. It's like, family atmosphere place, even when we're fighting. So it's just a lot of support, training in and out.
And so I'm also curious. So you start at 19, then you become champion in a couple different promotions. What are you thinking at that point? Is the goal of the UFC? What's going on in a young, 23, 24, 25-year-old Jimmie Rivera's head?
I think when I realized I wanted to be UFC was probably when, like, my teammates were going in, to be honest with you. I was just doing it because I love it. I still do it because I love it now. But, once my 2 teammates went in, Nick Pace and then Louis Galno, I'm like, I really wanted to be in there.
And so then, do you remember your UFC debut?
Yeah, I remember it.
What was it? What was going on through your head? Were you more nervous than?
I wasn't nervous at all, because I was around it when my buddy Pace and Louis fought, so I knew what it was all about. Went in there. It was just great to go in there, get a quick win too, and walk out and enjoy it.
And then, what was also pretty incredible was, you went on a 20-fight win streak, as a lot of people know.
Yeah.
And then, there are a couple losses, but then do you feel like people have written you off, or do you feel like you have a chip on your shoulder because there was a point where it was like you were 100%, everyone, there was this hype, and then, there's losses to great guys, but you're still, 30, you're still young, you're still at the top of the game. Do you feel like some people have written you off?
I don't know about people. I just think at the end of the day, UFC is going to do what the UFC wants to do. And sometimes it makes sense for them, but it doesn't make sense for a fighter. So it's one of those things. It's like you kind of like, you damn if you do, damn if you don't. So, you know, going into this fight, you know, it's, you know, got to prove myself that I'm still in the top of the division, but also going into the fight, it's like, you know, my primary focus, get a win, and then, you know, top 5 guy next. That's it. I mean, you know, we were off the Marlon Rivera fight early, but it didn't make sense because what do I benefit from fighting him? And
Right.
that's always been like, if I fought Jan, it would have threw me right back into either one more fight and then title fight, or maybe a title fight right away. You know, I can't say anything about the Sterling fight. Like the Jan fight, I was like, it's very questionable because I lost 30 seconds of the fight, a little bit at the first round, a little bit at the end of the second round. So it's like one of those things that, you know, kind of bothers me a lot. And I could tell that he wasn't as happy in his performance, but I think he just got lucky. And with the Sterling fight, that's my fault. Like, I lost that fight. I didn't show up. I had a bad weight cut, and I learned from it, and I made those changes into the Jan fight.
And then how do you watch a lot of tape of your fights to how does it work with your team when you're preparing for a new fight and adjusting?
I usually watch, like, I watched my last fight a couple times after the fight, and then I usually watch most recent fights and, you know, compare the two and see what fights, you know, he's won and what fights he's lost, and just kind of compare who he fights, and sometimes, like, you know, who's kind of similar to my style.
And so you're 30 now. How long do you think you still want to continue fighting fresh? I mean, you told me earlier, even when we were walking up, you know, you don't need to fight, but you love it. How long do you hope that you continue?
34, 35. I think, you know, they always say once you hit 35, you start going over the hill. I think around that age.
Beautiful. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking about Manscaped. Support for Where Is This Going comes from Manscaped, who is #1 in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for all of your family jewels, Jimmy. Do you have a favorite little manscaping story or little thoughts on Manscaped?
Well, we were talking about before, you know, I did get it. I haven't used it all over yet. I just, you know, I did try it on my face just to see how would it feel, you know, but I haven't got into other areas that, you know, Manscaped is supposed to go, you know. I just gave it a shot, just tried it real quick. I was like, oh, let me just see real quick.
It was okay on the face?
It was okay on the face, so I haven't tried other places yet. So, you know, I did try my face first before I tried anywhere else.
Beautiful.
And I can't give it any more because I haven't tried any other places. When I actually find time, I will use it.
Beautiful. He's probably referring to the Lawnmower 2.0, I think is the one that,
Yeah, that's
the lawnmower.
Yes.
The Lawnmower 2.0 has proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer will not nick or snag your nuts when that time comes.
And that's what I really wanted to try, just in general on my face, because I don't really, if you notice, I don't really buzz anything. I just, you know, my barber, he takes care of it, but, you know, sometimes it grows in right here, and I'm not good with a straight razor, you know what I mean? I'm definitely going to cut something, so I just gave it a shot real quick just to try it out when it came in the mail. I was like, oh, it wasn't bad.
Beautiful. Manscaping accidents are finally the thing of the past. Manscaped, I don't know if you know this, they also have the Crop Preserver. It's an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer.
I thought about buying it, but I don't really have that problem, so
Yeah.
I'm like...
Well, I don't know. Some athletes do, but you're lucky
so
if you
I don't have that problem with my balls. I'm not gonna lie. So I didn't get it. I did read it. I did see it. I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I didn't really have the problem with it. So I'm like, I don't really need it.
Perfect. I mean, yeah, we talked about it. Some people, you already put deodorant on your armpits, so I guess you could put it on, for some people, the smelliest part of their body. You can use 20% off and free shipping with the code WTG at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job, and Jimmy, your balls will thank you. So, speaking of your next fight, Marlon Cheeto Vera, what do you, without obviously revealing the game plan, what do you kind of see in his game that you feel like maybe catches your attention?
You know, I think, you know, some people are like, I just think I'm better all around. But I do say anybody in the top 15 or in the UFC in general, you got to be tough. You know, yeah. I mean, they're not no Joe Schmo, so they got to be tough. I think I'm just better all around, and I think when it comes to it, it's just I'm very confident in it. You know, the biggest thing is just being in shape for a fight.
Have you always? I mean, you know, how You talked a little earlier about teaching kids. It's not just about wins and losses and stuff like that. For you personally, how do you mentally go through that process after a win? Do you think about it, or do you think, it's normal, it's done, or do you think more about the losses? Like, how do you bounce back from a loss?
I always think about both. You know what I mean? I always think I could do better even if I got the win, and from a loss, I could, same thing, see what I could do better to get the win. I always look back and critique. I'm like a perfectionist, so I always go back and critique and want to do better.
How does for you at 30 years old, how do you feel like you continue to improve?
It's just experience. I mean, I always train off fight camp when I'm not in fight camp. So with that, that's when you learn the most. And then just the experience, the 11 years of just fighting, or 12 years fighting amateur and pro, just adds up and gives you a lot more experience and a lot more things you could do.
What do you feel like is something that you would tell that you wish you knew at maybe like 19 or 20 that you would tell your younger self that you now know?
I feel like just some of the mistakes, just different things I've gone through and experiences, I would wish I knew like earlier, but that's life. You make the mistakes, or you've gone through the mistakes and you learn from them. So always, like, I wish I like known better when I was younger, but you live and learn.
What about as a fighter in terms of
same thing. It's just like, as the years goes on, you get better and you learn from it. Each fight too is like a learning experience, so you learn from it. And it would be great to not have those experiences and just know learned already what I should have done.
And so 30 now, do you feel like with a couple wins, do you believe you'll be a UFC champion one day?
Yeah, I just think it's very hard depending on what the UFC wants to do. And, what kind of sucks in a way is that the division's still held up. Like, you had Henry Cejudo fight last June and still hasn't fought yet and defended the belt. I know he's got surgery and stuff, and I can understand, but it's still like, all right, when's he going to fight? And it comes down to money, too. It comes down to who you're going to fight. So it's just one of those things. It's like, all right, well, let's keep the division going. So this way, people, a champ should fight at least 2 or 3 times a year, really 3, and keep the division going.
And I'm also curious as to, I've only known you for a short while, but you seem like a very like calm and relaxed guy. How is the Jimmie Rivera in the cage different from the Jimmie Rivera outside of the octagon?
Just, I think it's the same, but I know across the ring this guy wants to kick my ass, so I got to kick his ass.
Do you have any pre-fight rituals that you do every time?
I usually get slapped before I get in the octagon by Tiger, and then, I just, spend some time with the family and say my goodbyes, and just go in there and fight, I guess.
What's for someone who hasn't ever fought in a professional bout against another man who's trying to take you out, will you describe what that's like? We see it as fans, and we see it on TV, and you guys do these things and you execute these movements so flawlessly, but it's probably a whole nother ballgame when you have someone coming for your head.
It really, especially when it's your first fight, it's like one of those things you realize, like, all right, well, I'm in the cage, he's in the cage or octagon, and they're locking it, and we're like, literally the refs in there is like, you ready? I'm like, all right, well, now we got to kick each other's ass. And then once the bell rings, it just game plan kicks in and you start working. But it's always crazy to be like, all right, now everybody's thousands of people and millions on TV are watching me fight right now. So, but it doesn't really go to my head. I just go, it's like it's a real feeling like, all right, we're actually going to do this. And then just bell rings and everything else is second, and just game plan and fighting comes first.
Is it do you feel like you have a constant adrenaline rush for those 15 to 25 minutes?
For sure. Yeah, because after the fight, everything hurts.
Do you remember do you have one particular favorite moment inside the octagon?
There's been a couple. I think one of my biggest achievements is just going in there and beating Uriah Faber. I think that's one of my biggest achievements in there. Then, watching his fight against Jan recently, I was pulling for him. I wanted him to win, and it sucked he didn't. But I think when it comes down to people, Jan's a contender, and losing a very, very close. Like, I don't even think it was that close, but I was winning all those rounds leading up to the end of the first and the second. Just losing 10 seconds here and 15 seconds there, like that bothers me a lot. So it's like, if I could have a rematch, I would definitely love to have a rematch with him or with Sterling too. Or no, any of the losses I have. The 3 losses I have: Sterling, Marlon, Moraes, or
Top 3 guys other than Henry.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, not to look too past, but you say you pick up a win against Cheeto, who is there someone right after that you're looking for next?
Top 5. That's someone in the top 5, whether it's a rematch or someone in the top 5. I mean, who do you got? You got Santos fighting Cody. So
it's a killer division. I mean, there's some murderers in that one.
Yeah, it's a very, like, people look at divisions. UFC looks at it, and I believe like it's a hard division to figure out who's gonna go next to fight for the belt. I mean, I believe Jan should be the next, but besides that, it's a very deep division. Anybody could be champ in the top 10.
Would you ever consider either probably not moving up or down?
No, I mean there was talks about moving down. One point, I was like, yeah, that's just not healthy. I don't want to go in there and not perform, and then it's like a whole complete lifestyle change. But I could do it, but it's that, am I going to be healthy when I get hit in the head?
Right.
That's the biggest thing that I worry about. Moving up, I'm not as big as some other guys, so I think 35 is the perfect spot for me. But I know some guys that fight at 45 that walk around like 65, 170, 175. I'm like, that's huge.
Would you ever? There's one question that I was talking about with a friend the other day, and actually I was with Lyman yesterday, and I asked him, is there one? Can you train your chin? 2, can you do some people just have bad chins, or is that something like?
Definitely, some people have bad chins. Can you train your chin? No, but I guess you could get in better shape. Kind of like if you think of a Frank Edgar fight in Maynard, where he got killed the first round, but he was in such a good shape he could bounce back. So that could happen, but some people just, have glass jaws and you hit them and they drop.
What do you hope is, when you're done with your fighting career, your legacy as a professional fighter?
I don't know, because I haven't thought that far about being done, so I can't really tell you.
Okay. And what about do you think that I don't know if one day you want to have kids or whatnot, but would you allow your kids to be in a fighter?
No.
Why not?
No, because everything I've been through, it's not worth it.
Really?
For them, yeah, for their health, yeah. Me, it's like it's almost like a Rocky Balboa kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like the concepts and the things I learned in martial arts, definitely I would let them train, but to fight it, I would rather them do something else.
What do you think is the greatest life lesson you've been able to learn that MMA has taught you?
In mixed martial arts, I mean, there's been so many just in training and purposes. I can't even give you. I mean, I could give you one, but like, there's just so many. Like, one of the things I could give you is just like the discipline that's learned of, not giving up and starting something, finishing it, and where my self-discipline's at. Like, in general, it's just something I learned as a kid in Tiger Showman's. So that's a huge one. You know what I mean?
And what is some of the? I mean, you can get into it as much or as little as you want, but some of the, the hard parts of something of the game that really would make you opposed to having your child or someone that you really care about get into it.
Get a hit in the head, and I think cutting the weight sucks. That's one of the biggest things that I think I would fight forever if I didn't have to cut weight.
Really?
Yeah.
And in terms of, I think it's also interesting because with the NFL now you see all this CTE and everything coming out.
Yeah, I mean,
is that something you worry about?
Yes. I mean, it's something I worry about. I might think my wife worries about it more, but I think it's something you can control, and it's really important to know when your limits are, and if you need a break or you can't do rounds that day, just don't do them, and that's it.
Do you take any like CBD or stuff like that to help you with that?
No. How the hell is that gonna? I don't think it's gonna help you.
Really? Some fighters have it's helped them a lot. At least they say it.
Placebo effect.
How do you in terms of recovery when you're pre-fight and post-fight? How is it? Do you do cryo? Do you do any?
I tried cryo before, but it's not anywhere near like doing an ice bath. Ice bath's the way to go. It's just knowing your body and doing the right things. I mean, I have a great physical therapist. His program's Counter-Strike. He works with me all the time, and he's got me. I mean, there's been some really bad injuries. You know, I mean, I almost got pulled from the Cruz fight before even Cruz was hurt. I was hurt, and I tore my knee, and I was able to rehab it. So we started that camp like 3 months out. So I had time, so it didn't affect it that much. But that fight was close. I mean, there's been a couple close calls, but he's very good. So I'm usually able to get out of it, you know, be able to recover from the injury. It all depends, to be honest with you, how bad the injury gets. That's it.
And when are you going to go down to Houston for the fight?
The week of. I don't go down early. Unless it's like, you know, Colorado or some elevation, something like that. I go down the week of.
Do you have any big plans after the fight? Any small vacation planned or something to relax?
No. We were supposed to fight MSG, and I had a vacation with my wife for our anniversary to go to Italy. But then they wanted me to so Cody Stamen wouldn't take the fight, and then Rob Font couldn't get cleared in New York, which sucked because I really wanted to be at MSG with my teammates and fight at MSG because I've always dreamed to fight there. So it kind of sucked because I couldn't do it, and they wanted to push the fight in the beginning of December. I'm like, I'm away, like I can't do it. Like, I'll get back and begin in December, but I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be gone for 2 weeks. How am I gonna do a fight camp? And then I'm like, you know, this is one of those things where I'm like, you know, get me someone else to fight MSG, and then there was no one else. So I was like, all right, well, I guess that's it. I mean, they gave me 2 names. We said yes to Cody. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, all right, so we'll go say yes to Font, and that fell through too. So it's tough. I mean, the commissions and sometimes the criteria makes sense or doesn't make sense. So you really can't do anything about it. You just gotta go with the flow.
Wrap things up. Do you have a final prediction for February 8th?
I just want to get my hand raised. That's it. That's the biggest thing. Get my hand raised. Look for someone in the top 5 after that.
You can follow Jimmie Rivera on Instagram at Jimmie Rivera, on Twitter at Jimmie Rivera 135. You can or you must tune in. UFC 247, February 8th in Houston, Texas. That card is headlined by John Jones and Dominic Reyes fighting for the title. Jimmy, thank you so much for taking the time. I know, you're busy generally, but especially with the fight camp.
No, anytime. This is
I
cool.
appreciate
We'll definitely do it again.
Yes,
Just
sir.
hit me up and we'll do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, man.
No
appreciate
problem,
you.
man. Anytime.